My name is Brian. I've worked in the medical field most of my life. I'm calm under pressure, detail-oriented, and pride myself on being the kind of man who doesn't make decisions based on emotion. I was a devoted husband for 17 years, the kind of man who gave up medical school to build a life with the woman he loved. I thought we had something rare, something real. But all it took was one message on a fan app. Yes, a Dyson fan. To uncover a secret affair that shattered everything I believed about marriage, loyalty, and love. What I discovered next led me down a path of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, something I never expected to find again, myself. You think you know how this ends? Trust me, you don't. I had been married to Monica for 17 years. We didn't have kids of our own, but I helped raise her 2 daughters from a previous marriage. They were 11 and 6 when I met them. Now they're grown women. And for all those years, I thought I had built a strong, honest, passionate marriage. We communicated well, or so I believed. We talked about everything: work stress, life goals, even intimacy. We weren't just lovers, we were best friends, or at least, I thought we were. We shared long talks on the couch about philosophy and what it meant to live a good life. We kept ourselves in shape. We made time for each other on our days off. Sure, things got busier lately. I was putting in long hours at the hospital due to staffing shortages, and Monica had transitioned to working from home for a legal consultancy. Still, I believed we were solid, untouchable, until one night, a fan proved me wrong. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but that's exactly what happened. We have a Dyson fan in our bedroom, one of those sleek, modern ones that connect to an app. It was giving me a filter alert, and I was too lazy to grab my phone from the charger by the door. So I asked Monica if I could use hers to reset it. She hesitated, just a fraction of a second, and then handed it over. As I searched for the Dyson app on her phone, something popped up, a Snapchat notification. The preview read, "I'll bring the special toy." That one sentence tore the floor out from under me. My hands went cold. My ears buzzed. I just stared at the fan for what felt like hours, even though it was probably only a few minutes. Monica asked what was wrong, and I mumbled something about checking the router connection for the fan. She nodded and walked away, completely unaware that my world had just shifted. That night, I didn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled. I've read stories like this online before, tales of betrayal, of cheating spouses, of lives torn apart by secrets. But never once did I imagine I'd be the man sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a stranger's phone, questioning everything. I decided to dig. Not impulsively, not out of paranoia. Out of necessity. The next morning, I called out of work. My supervisor is a good friend. I told her enough to explain why I needed time off, and she gave it to me without question. While Monica was out, supposedly at the office, I opened her laptop. She'd left it logged into her Facebook account. I checked her Google activity, her location history. Then I accessed the Verizon message system and pulled up her number. 15,000 messages. 15,000. They dated back to February of the previous year. At first, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was some innocent, flirty banter. But no, these were explicit texts, nude photos, memes, inside jokes, private nicknames, conversations about me, about my flaws, my habits, my insecurities. She had told him things I thought were sacred between us. But it got worse. 3 months ago, the texts stopped appearing in the Verizon logs. They hadn't stopped talking, though. They had simply switched platforms to Snapchat. She had used that same Chromebook, lying in bed next to me, rubbing my back while I drifted off to sleep, all while sexting another man. His name was Marcus. He worked with her. He was younger, married, with 3 kids. And the worst part? I had met him, shaken his hand, looked him in the eye. I even remember complimenting his work ethic once. I had no idea I was standing across from the man who was destroying my marriage behind my back. I logged into her Snapchat. It wasn't easy, but I figured it out. The messages, the videos, the pictures, they were all there. There was no denying it anymore. No more wondering. No more doubts. My hands trembled with rage, but also with grief. It wasn't just that she was cheating. It was that she had said terrible things about me. She made fun of me. Said he made her feel more desired, more alive. Told him she loved him. Told him I never made her feel the way he did. There were no plans to run off together. No dreams of a future. Just raw, ugly, selfish betrayal. It made everything worse. She wasn't leaving me for love. She was throwing away everything we had for nothing. I stared around the bedroom we had shared for almost 2 decades. I had built this house for her, designed every room with her in mind. And now it felt like a crime scene. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything. I called my best friend, a man who's been divorced 3 times. He recommended a ruthless lawyer. I scheduled a meeting. Then, I started printing. Pages and pages of messages, photos, evidence. I knew I needed to protect myself. Emotionally, legally, financially. But more than anything, I needed answers. And I was prepared to go to hell and back to get them. I didn't say a word to Monica that weekend. I acted normal, calmer than I'd expected, though inside, I was spiraling. I'd already taken the week off from work and scheduled my meeting with the attorney. Every time I looked at her, I felt my stomach twist into knots, but I couldn't let on. Not yet. I needed more time. I needed the perfect moment. And above all, I needed control. She continued on as if nothing was wrong, talking about her upcoming quarterly conference like it was just another routine trip. 5 days out of town, 2 states away, like clockwork. But now I knew the real reason she always seemed excited about these getaways. I'd seen the hotel confirmations in her email. I'd seen the conversations with Marcus about what they'd do when she arrived. I knew this trip wasn't about work, it was about lust. And I wasn't going to stop it. I was going to watch it unfold and end it on my terms. Sunday evening, after she went to bed, I opened her carry-on luggage to confirm what I already suspected. Tucked between her blouses and toiletries was this special toy from the Snapchat message. It wasn't something we ever used together. It was sleek, expensive, remote-controlled, and ready for her next rendezvous. My heart pounded as I held it in my hand. Not out of shock anymore, but out of cold, calculated anger. I put it back exactly where I found it. On Monday morning, she kissed me goodbye at the front door. I kissed her back, lightly, without warmth. She smiled, oblivious. "I'll text when I land," she said. I nodded, then closed the door behind her and locked it. As soon as her car was out of the driveway, I went into full motion. I had already set myself up as a contact on her hotel reservation. That would give me access to a room key without alerting her. I packed my own small bag, grabbed my evidence folder, and booked a flight for that afternoon. My plan wasn't just to catch her in the act. That would be too easy, too expected. I wanted her to know I watched it happen. I wanted her to feel the walls close in around her, slowly. I arrived in the same city by evening, checked into the same hotel, just 2 floors below hers. The staff gave me access with no issue. The room was neat, untouched. She hadn't returned yet. I placed the package on the bed, a 600-page printout of texts, screenshots, photos, and one final item, my wedding ring, lying on top. Then I left. I didn't wait around. I went to the hotel bar, ordered a whiskey, and sat by the window. I had all her messaging apps open on my phone, synced through her accounts. I saw the moment she came into the room, saw the panic start as the messages went unread and the printouts were found. Then my phone lit up like a Christmas tree, calls, texts, missed FaceTimes. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I sent Marcus a message of my own. I told him to meet me in the lobby, that I had something for him too. I'd also sent a certified envelope to his home address, addressed to his wife, with everything included. I had found her on Facebook and drafted a respectful but devastating message to accompany the files. All it took was one press of a button. When Marcus arrived, he looked exactly like I remembered, smug, confident, completely unaware. I handed him a flash drive and said, "Your wife will be getting a similar package in the next 24 hours. Don't worry. It's thorough." He opened his mouth, probably to lie, probably to say something slick. I didn't give him the chance. "Tell Monica she can keep the toy. She's going to need it." I walked away without another word. I flew home the next morning. Monica beat me there by a few hours. I entered the house to find her sitting at the kitchen table, hands shaking, the entire folder of printed messages spread before her. She looked up at me like I was a ghost. "Brian, please." I raised a hand. "Don't." She tried to stand. I stepped back. "I told you once," I said, my voice flat. "Cheating is a deal breaker. You knew it. You did it anyway." Tears streamed down her face, but I wasn't moved. "Not anymore. You threw away 17 years for someone who wouldn't even fight for you," I added. "Now I'm going to fight for myself." She sobbed, pleaded, begged for a conversation, but I was already walking down the hall. I had a call to make, to my lawyer, and a new life to begin without her. The silence in the house after I returned from the trip was deafening. Monica barely spoke. She tried to start conversations, but I gave her nothing. She kept looking at me like she was hoping I'd crack, that I'd yell, throw something, cry, feel something. But there was nothing left. She hadn't just broken our marriage. She'd hollowed it out. And all that remained was a version of me I didn't recognize anymore. That night, I didn't sleep in our bedroom. I took a blanket and laid on the couch. She stood in the hallway for a long time before whispering, "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I turned my face to the back of the couch and said nothing. The next morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table again, her eyes bloodshot, face swollen from crying. The printed messages were still spread out like crime scene evidence. She didn't try to clean it up. Maybe she thought the mess would win me back. Maybe she hoped that if she surrounded herself with guilt, I'd feel pity. But I wasn't there to save her. She asked me if I wanted coffee. I shook my head. She asked if we could talk. I told her no. Eventually, I sat across from her and said, "Why him? Why now? Why like this?" She started to cry again, but I didn't flinch. She said it wasn't about love, that it was an escape, a rush, something that spiraled before she even realized what was happening. I laughed. "A rush?" I said, shaking my head. "You threw away everything for a thrill ride?" She tried to grab my hand. I pulled away. I told her about the look on Marcus's face when I confronted him, about how his confidence cracked when I mentioned the package sent to his wife, how he stood there, frozen, unsure if he should run or deny, and how I didn't care anymore, because the moment I gave him that flash drive, I finally felt power return to my chest. Not revenge, not satisfaction, just power. "Brian," she whispered, "I didn't mean for this to go so far." "But it did," I snapped. "And it went far because you let it. Because every single time you opened your phone, every time you messaged him while lying next to me, you made a choice." She broke down again, slid from her chair to her knees, and sobbed like her body couldn't contain the grief. She said she didn't know what was wrong with her, that she felt like she'd been living a lie, that Marcus made her feel alive. I stood there, watching her fall apart on the floor, and I felt nothing. No urge to comfort, no desire to fix. All I could think about was the life I could have had if I hadn't sacrificed for her. She asked me again to sit down and talk, to rebuild. She said we could go to counseling, start over, even move away to escape the shame. I stared at her for a long time before finally saying, "You know what hurts the most? It's not even that you cheated. It's that you let me love you while you did it." Her sobs turned into quiet whimpers. I told her that I was going to file the papers that week, that my attorney had already begun drafting the divorce, that she should find another place to stay because I wouldn't share the same roof with her anymore. That's when she changed. She stood up, shaky and pale, but no longer sobbing. Her voice turned sharp. "This is still my house too," she said. "You can't just push me out like some criminal." I tilted my head. "No, you're not a criminal, Monica. Criminals get due process. You got grace, and you spat in its face." She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I heard her scream into a pillow. Maybe she thought that would change something, but I had already made my decision. Later that night, she emerged from the room wearing a dress I hadn't seen in years, something she used to wear on our date nights. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes still red. She tried to be seductive, stepping toward me slowly. "Let me remind you who I am," she said softly. I looked her dead in the eye. "I know who you are. That's the problem." Then I picked up my bag and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to be anywhere she wasn't. I drove for hours, thought about everything. The years I gave her, the medical school I turned down, the daughters I helped raise. All for someone who threw it away for cheap attention and validation from a man who couldn't even keep his pants zipped at work. And in that moment, on that empty highway, I realized she didn't just betray me. She freed me. And freedom, no matter how painful, always comes at a cost. The night I drove off, I ended up in the parking lot of an old 24-hour diner I used to frequent before I met Monica. It was empty except for a waitress who looked too tired to care why a man in wrinkled clothes and bloodshot eyes had just walked in. I didn't order food. I just sat in the corner booth with black coffee in silence. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, the kind that presses against your chest until breathing feels optional. I replayed everything. Her tears, her begging, that stupid dress, all the years I gave, Every part of myself I handed over without hesitation. And for what? So she could feel alive for a few months in a cheap hotel with a married man who couldn't even look me in the eye when I handed him the truth? The next morning, I returned home. Not because I missed her, but because I needed to reclaim the space. My house. My life. My name. When I walked in, Monica was sitting in the dark living room with a glass of wine. It was 9 in the morning. Her eyes followed me as I dropped my keys, walked to the kitchen, and started making coffee. Neither of us spoke. Eventually, she broke the silence. "You didn't come home." I didn't answer. "I thought maybe something happened to you," she added. I turned to her, slowly. "Something did happen to me. You." That shut her up. Later that afternoon, I went to meet with my lawyer. Her office was quiet and clinical, white walls, a stack of documents already waiting. She was professional, direct. I appreciated that. She asked if I was ready to proceed, and I didn't hesitate. I signed where she told me. She explained the process. We'd file for divorce, notify Monica officially, and if she didn't contest, we'd go straight to mediation. If she did, we'd battle it out in court. Either way, I was ready. Before I left, she handed me a folder. "You'll want to keep this safe. Copies of everything we filed today. And, Brian, I know this is hard, but it's a start." That word, start, felt strange in my mouth, like I wasn't sure if I deserved it. When I got back home, Monica was waiting by the door. "I know," she said before I even opened my mouth. "You went to the lawyer." I stepped past her without acknowledging the comment. "Can we just talk?" she said, following me into the kitchen. "Please." I opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter. "Talk then. Let's hear it." She stood there for a moment, like she wasn't sure how to begin. "I know I screwed up," she started. "I know I hurt you more than I can ever fix. But I wasn't thinking straight. I got lost in it. In the attention, the escape, and I hate myself for it." I took a sip, staring at her. "So that makes it better?" "You were confused." "No," she said, shaking her head. "It doesn't make it better. I just want you to know I'm not trying to defend it. I'm trying to understand it, too." I walked past her, into the living room. She followed. I started reading books on infidelity. I've been looking for therapists. I've been talking to HR about stepping away from my job. "Because you got fired?" I interrupted, without looking at her. She went quiet. "You think any of that matters to me now?" I said. "You think a few apologies and self-help books erase the fact that you looked me in the eye and lied every day for over a year? That you held me at night while texting another man?" Tears welled in her eyes again, but I didn't stop. "I gave up medical school for you. I gave up a version of myself I'll never get back. And what did you give me in return? A Snapchat affair with a man who cheated on his wife and laughed behind your back." She covered her face with her hands. "I know. God, I know." I sat down heavily on the couch and stared at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall. I stood up, walked over, and took it down. She watched as I placed it on the kitchen table, face down. "You don't love me," I said. "You love the version of me who didn't know the truth." She stepped closer. "That's not true. I love you now. The real you. The man who stayed strong even after I broke him." "Don't romanticize my pain," I said coldly. "You didn't fall in love with me again. You just realized I might actually leave this time." She fell silent. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom. Before I closed the door, she whispered, "What do I have to do to fix this?" I paused, then looked over my shoulder. "You'd have to turn back time. And last I checked, you're not God." And then I shut the door between us, both literally and metaphorically, because some things can't be undone, and some damage doesn't deserve a second chance. I woke up in the guest bedroom the next morning with a strange mix of clarity and bitterness sitting heavy on my chest. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a man climbing out of the rubble of his own life, 1 inch at a time. I brewed my own coffee, ignored the fresh pot Monica had made, and sat alone on the patio as the sun rose over the backyard I once landscaped with dreams of growing old together. Monica stayed silent that morning. Maybe she sensed the finality in me. Maybe she was just exhausted from trying to fix something she knew was beyond repair. I left the house for a walk, needed air, space, something that didn't smell like her perfume or echo with memories I could no longer trust. When I returned, she was sitting on the living room floor surrounded by photo albums. Wedding pictures, family holidays, the girls' high school graduations. She looked up at me with teary eyes and asked if we could talk again. This time I sat down, not because I wanted to reconcile, because I wanted to hear her say it all, out loud. I never wanted to lose you, she began, voice shaking. I didn't go looking for an affair. It just happened. I let out a dry laugh. Nothing just happens, Monica. You made 100 decisions before you ever touched him. She winced. You're right. I was selfish. I got caught up in the attention. He made me feel like I was still young, still exciting. And I didn't realize how much I was throwing away until you put it in my face. That's the part that really gets me, I said, leaning forward. You didn't stop because you loved me. You stopped because you got caught. She broke again. Tears poured down her face as she reached for my hand, but I pulled away. There's no apology big enough, I added. You said I was a great husband, that I was more than enough. So what was it? Boredom? Did I make life too easy for you? She shook her head violently. No. God, no. You were amazing. You are amazing. That's why I hate myself so much. I betrayed the one man who gave everything for me. I stood up and began pacing. You want to talk about betrayal? I snapped. Let's talk about how I turned down med school because I thought our life together was more important. Let's talk about how I embraced your daughters like they were my own. How I carried the weight of your ex's mistakes, your trust issues, your trauma, and never once used it against you. She was crying harder now, curling into herself on the floor. I didn't just lose a wife, I said. I lost the illusion that love was enough. You killed that. You made me doubt every decision I've made since the day I said I do. Then why are you still here? She whispered. I stopped pacing. Because this house is mine. Because my name is on the deed. Because I deserve to be the one who chooses when I walk away. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What if I gave you everything? Total honesty, no more lies. You can ask anything. I won't hold back. I stared at her for a long moment. All right, I said. Then tell me this. Did you love him? Her face crumpled. No, she breathed. I thought I did. I thought it was something different, something exciting. But now I see it was just fantasy. I never stopped loving you. That's worse, I said quietly. Because if you still loved me and did all this anyway, then you're not just reckless. You're cruel. She collapsed into sobs again, and I stood over her, watching the woman I once adored dissolve into someone I couldn't even recognize. I want to make it right, she cried. Tell me how. You can't, I said. You made choices I can't unsee, said words I can't unhear, touched someone else while lying next to me. You shattered the core of who we were. She begged for counseling. She said she'd quit her job, change her number, move cities, anything. But I'd heard enough. I picked up the wedding photo from the table and held it for a moment before walking to the fireplace. I stared at it one last time, then set it down on the mantel without a word. You've got until the end of the week, I said as I turned away. Find another place to stay. I want space. I want quiet. And I want to remember what it feels like to live in a home that doesn't reek of lies. And with that, I walked out. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is not stay to listen to another lie. For the next 2 days, the house felt like a tomb. I went about my routine like a man living with a ghost. Monica tried to act normal, making breakfast, folding laundry, asking me meaningless questions, but the tension was unbearable. Every room she entered lost air. Every sound she made scratched against my nerves. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. But the silence between us screamed louder than any fight ever could. Thursday afternoon, I came home from meeting with my attorney to find Monica sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. On the nightstand beside her was her phone, unlocked. I want to show you everything, she said. It took me a second to understand what she meant. Everything meant the secrets. The full scope. She had finally decided to pull the curtain back. I sat down slowly, and she handed me her phone. My fingers hesitated over the screen. I didn't know if I wanted to see more. But part of me needed it. Not for vengeance, not for evidence. For closure. She opened her gallery. Dozens of saved images, selfies she'd sent him, messages backed up from WhatsApp, videos I can never unsee. One showed her lying in bed, our bed, recording a message with his name whispered like a secret prayer. Another was a clip of her giggling in the passenger seat of his car, mouthing the words, "I love you." I couldn't breathe. I handed the phone back and stood up. I couldn't be in the same room. She followed me down the hall, begging me not to shut down. "Brian, please, it was stupid. I was out of my mind." "No," I said, my voice calm but firm. You were in control. You just didn't think I'd ever find out. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped away. I want to fix us, she whispered. I laughed, a bitter, joyless sound. You want to fix us? Monica, there is no us anymore. There's me, and the wreckage you left behind. She broke again, sobbing into her hands. That night, I sent a message to Marcus's wife. I had held back, thinking maybe she didn't need to know. But the hypocrisy of shielding someone else from a truth I had to face every day made my skin crawl. So I gathered everything, messages, images, video snippets, and sent them with a respectful but brutally honest message. The next morning, I woke up to a reply. She thanked me, said she had suspected something but didn't have proof. Then, she told me something that made my blood run cold. Monica wasn't the only one. Marcus had affairs with at least 2 other women at his office. My wife was just one in a string. I confronted Monica with that. You weren't even special to him, I said. You destroyed our marriage for a man who thought of you as disposable. She turned pale. I could see it sink in, the realization that she wasn't his soulmate, just another thrill on his list. Her voice broke as she whispered, I was such a fool. No, I said, you were selfish. And now the fantasy's dead. You want to run back to the man who actually gave a damn about you. She didn't argue. I could see the final layers of denial peel away. Her shoulders slumped. Her eyes lost focus. She sat on the couch and stared at nothing while I packed another box of my belongings. The silence was thick again, but this time, it wasn't cold. It was final. That evening, she came to me with one last proposal. Said she'd be willing to stay faithful to me while allowing me to see other people, an open marriage, on my terms. Her face was a mixture of desperation and resignation. You can do what you want, she whispered. I just want to be near you, even if you can't love me again. I stared at her for a long time. Do you even hear yourself? I asked. You want to chain yourself to a man who no longer trusts you, who doesn't look at you the same, just to keep wearing a ring? She said nothing. I'm not angry anymore, Monica, I said softly. But I can't love someone who only values me when I'm walking out the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam a door. But I think that hurt her more than anything. Because for the first time, she saw it, really saw it. Not my pain, but my absence. And sometimes, that's the loudest goodbye of all. The next morning, I woke up with Monica lying beside me again. I don't know when she crawled into the bed. I had passed out from sheer exhaustion the night before. Her arm was draped across my chest like it used to be. But there was no warmth in the gesture anymore. It felt foreign, like being touched by a stranger who only remembered how to love me. I quietly slid out from under her arm, grabbed my gym bag, and went for a run. Not because I wanted to clear my head. That wasn't possible anymore. I just needed to feel something. My lungs burning, my legs aching, the sweat dripping from my face. Anything but the numbness. When I came back, she was in the kitchen, still in her nightgown, still pretending we were some version of ourselves from 5 years ago. She had made pancakes, my favorite, or at least they used to be. I thought we could talk, she said, trying to smile. I sat down, but I didn't touch the food. She took a breath. I lost my job. I blinked. What? She nodded. They called yesterday. Said I'd breached data protocols. That I had violated the company's communication policy using unauthorized apps to discuss protected client information with Marcus. I didn't even feign surprise. I'd made that call myself a few days ago to corporate compliance. Laid everything out for them. Names, timelines, devices. They hadn't needed much convincing. What did you expect? I asked. She lowered her eyes. I guess I thought I'd have more time. More control. You've had control, I said sharply. For the past 18 months, you controlled every lie, every omission, every kiss you gave him while wearing my ring. I know, she whispered, her voice breaking. But I'm losing everything now. My job, you the girls. At the mention of her daughters, I froze. I had driven 3 hours the previous weekend to speak to them face to face. I told them everything. Not to turn them against their mother. I made that clear. But because I had helped raise them, loved them, stood in when their biological father left. They deserved honesty, and I needed closure. They still want to see you, I said. But they know the truth now. She covered her face, shaking with silent sobs. Later that day, I found her sitting in the living room, flipping through our wedding album. She looked up as I entered, her mascara streaked down her face. Do you remember this day? She asked, pointing to the photo of us laughing under a string of lights at the reception. I stared at it. I remember thinking I'd finally found someone who'd never hurt me. She closed the book, hugging it to her chest. I want to be that woman again. She's gone, I said. You killed her. Same way you killed us. That night, she tried again. This time, she lit candles, played soft music, wore the perfume I'd once loved. She slipped into bed beside me and whispered that she wanted to feel close again, even if it was just physically. I'll do anything, she said. Whatever you want. Just don't shut me out. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and looked her in the eyes. Say that again. She hesitated, but she did. Good, I said. So when you claim later that you thought it meant we were healing, I'll have proof that you knew exactly what this was. Because this wasn't reconciliation. This was survival. Hers, not mine. The sex wasn't passionate. It wasn't romantic. It was cold, emotionless, and deliberate. I didn't speak. I didn't caress. I didn't kiss her. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Used, discarded, emptied. Afterward, she curled into me, but I turned away. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, then got up and began packing again. Not just my clothes, my licenses, certificates, personal effects. Things that would follow me into a new chapter. A clean one. That afternoon, my attorney called. The divorce petition was finalized. Monica would be served in the coming days. I told her I was ready. When I informed Monica, she didn't scream or sob. She just nodded quietly. I thought I had time, she said. You had 17 years, I replied. And you spent the last 2 burning them down. She asked, once again, what she could do to make things right. And for the first time, I didn't respond with anger. I simply said, nothing. And I meant it. Because some wounds don't heal with effort. They don't shrink with time. Some wounds become permanent, part of who you are. And while forgiveness might come someday, love never will. Not for her. Not again. The day Monica was officially served the divorce papers, she didn't say a word. She sat at the kitchen table with the envelope beside her, unopened. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at it like it was radioactive. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I couldn't bear to watch her pretend to be shocked. She knew this was coming. She just never thought I'd follow through. I drove for hours with no destination. The same streets that once felt familiar now felt foreign, like I didn't belong here anymore. The town, the neighborhood, the life I'd built, all tainted. I parked by the lake where we used to take the girls when they were little. I sat there until the sun dipped behind the trees and the air turned cold. When I returned home, she was still in the same spot. The envelope had been opened. Our wedding photo, the one she tried to cling to, was gone from the living room wall. In its place, nothing but a faint outline on the paint. A ghost of what we used to be. She stood when I entered, holding a small box in her hands. Inside was her wedding ring, a few love letters I had written her over the years, and the silver bracelet I gave her on our 10th anniversary. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, voice barely above a whisper. But I wanted to return these before I left. She had found a short-term rental across town. She would be moving out the next morning. And just like that, it was really happening. The split. The unraveling of 17 years tied together by love, mistakes, and sacrifice. You don't need to give those back, I said quietly. I do, she replied. Because I didn't deserve to keep them. She stepped closer, like she wanted one last embrace, but I took a step back. Her face crumpled. Was there ever a moment, she asked, where you thought maybe we could survive this? I thought about it. The answer was yes, but that moment was long gone. It had died somewhere between the first deleted message and the first lie she told me with a straight face. There was, I said, but not anymore. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I ruined the only thing that ever felt real. I know, I said. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. No tossing, no haunting thoughts. Just a deep, dreamless sleep in a house that finally felt like mine again. The air was different, still heavy with memory, but no longer poisoned by illusion. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no goodbye, just the empty closet and the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the bathroom. I stood there in the doorway for a long time, letting it hit me. This was it. The end. I thought I'd feel relief. Or sadness. Or maybe anger again. But I didn't. What I felt was something much more dangerous. Peace. And that scared me more than anything. Because when you reach peace after devastation, it means something in you has died, And the version of yourself that believed in forever is never coming back. I took that box of letters and rings and buried it in the back of the closet. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I needed to remember who I had been and who I could no longer afford to be. Later that afternoon, I met with my therapist. I told him everything. The final conversation. The unanswered questions. The way she left without a final plea. "You seem lighter," he said. "Because I am," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Then it's time to start thinking about what comes next. Who Brian is without Monica." That sentence stayed with me the rest of the day. I wasn't just walking away from a woman who betrayed me. I was walking away from the version of myself who thought love meant staying through anything. Who thought loyalty required silence. Who thought being a good man meant being willing to suffer quietly. No more. I'm not sure where this road leads. I don't have a master plan or a dramatic redemption arc. But I know one thing. I've survived the worst heartbreak of my life and kept my soul intact. And that counts for something. Maybe someday I'll love again. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'll never forget what it cost me to get here. Because sometimes, the hardest goodbyes aren't the loudest. They're the quiet ones. The ones whispered to the version of you that stayed too long, gave too much, and lost himself in the process. But I'm not lost anymore. I'm just getting started. Looking back, if there's one truth I've learned through all this, it's that love must be guarded by trust, not blind hope. No matter how many years you've spent with someone, no matter how much history or sacrifice ties you together, when trust is broken, it leaves a scar that love alone can't heal. For those of us who've lived long enough to know that time is precious, I'll say this. Never stay in a place where your dignity is slowly being chipped away. Communication is essential, but so is respect. And without that, there is no foundation left to rebuild. I used to believe that enduring pain was proof of commitment, that forgiveness meant forgetting. But now I know better. Forgiveness is for peace, not for restoration. And peace doesn't come from pretending things didn't happen. It comes from facing them, grieving them, and then letting go. Whether you're 35 or 75, it's never too late to choose yourself, to start over, to reclaim your voice. If someone no longer values your presence, don't wait for them to realize your worth. Walk away with grace, with strength, and with the wisdom that some endings are, in truth, new beginnings.